The morning air at the coastal training base carried the sharp smell of salt and steel. Helicopter rotors thudded somewhere beyond the hangars, and a line of officers stood in loose formation near the observation deck. This was not a normal inspection day. Word had spread quickly that a new liaison officer had arrived, one transferred directly from a joint task force, her record sealed under multiple classifications. Most of the men didn't know her name yet, only that she was a woman stepping into a space where women rarely stood. She walked toward them with measured steps, boots landing quietly on the concrete. Her uniform was immaculate, pressed with the kind of precision that came from habit, not ceremony. Her posture was calm, neither stiff nor submissive. She carried herself like someone who had learned long ago that confidence didn't need volume. Rear Admiral Thomas Hale watched her approach with a faint, amused curve to his lips. He had spent 3 decades in the Navy, commanded fleets, overseen classified operations, and mentored generations of SEALs. He had also developed a dry sense of humor that sometimes slipped into sharpness when he believed the moment allowed it. "So," Hale said aloud, glancing down at the folder in his hand, then back up at her. "This is our mysterious addition." A few officers exchanged glances. One of the younger commanders smirked, assuming this would be quick, maybe even entertaining. Hale stepped forward, his voice carrying easily across the deck. "Lieutenant," he said, drawing out the word slightly, "is that correct?" "Yes, sir," she replied evenly. Hale raised an eyebrow. "Lieutenant what?" She met his gaze without hesitation. "Lieutenant Commander Reyes, sir." There was a subtle pause. The Admiral chuckled softly, shaking his head as if amused by a private joke. "Lieutenant Commander," he repeated. "That's an ambitious title for someone assigned as an observer. Tell me, Lieutenant Commander, are you here to take notes, or are you planning to tell my SEALs how to do their jobs?" A ripple of restrained laughter moved through the group. Reyes didn't react. Her face remained neutral, her breathing steady. "I'm here to fulfill my assignment, sir," she said. "Nothing more, nothing less." Hale studied her for a moment, then waved a dismissive hand. "Very diplomatic. Still, I like to know who I'm dealing with. You don't look like the usual candidates for this posting." She nodded once. "I don't usually volunteer for usual postings." That earned a few raised brows. Hale smiled wider now, clearly entertained. He circled her slowly, eyes scanning her uniform, the ribbons on her chest, the clean lines of her sleeves. "Interesting service record," he said, tapping the folder. "Though frustratingly vague. Joint operations, advisory roles, extended deployments. A lot of redacted ink." He stopped in front of her. "Makes a man curious." "Yes, sir," she said simply. Hale leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice just enough to feel personal. "Tell me something, Lieutenant Commander. What exactly do you think qualifies you to stand on this deck with operators who've spent their lives earning every inch of ground they walk on?" The air felt tighter now. The smiles around them faded. Reyes didn't flinch. "I've earned my ground too, sir," she replied. Hale straightened, amused again. "Confidence is good, but confidence without context can be misleading." He glanced down at her left arm as she shifted her stance. The sleeve of her uniform rode up just slightly, revealing a small, dark marking near her wrist before she adjusted it back into place. The Admiral froze. It was brief, so brief most people missed it, but Hale saw it clearly. A sniper qualification mark, stylized and unmistakable. Not the standard range insignia. This one was older, rarer. The kind issued only by a handful of programs that no longer officially existed. The sounds around them seemed to dull. Hale's expression changed, the humor draining from his eyes as recognition settled in. He looked back up at her face, really looked this time. The calm, the control, the absence of bravado. "Where did you get that mark?" he asked quietly. Reyes met his gaze. "Earned it, sir." The Admiral said nothing. His jaw tightened slightly. He straightened his uniform, clearing his throat. The officers around them sensed the shift, though none understood it. The joking atmosphere was gone, replaced by something heavier, more cautious. Hale took a step back, nodding once. "Very well, Lieutenant Commander Reyes," he said, his tone now measured and formal. "Welcome to the base." Reyes inclined her head. "Thank you, sir." As she moved to stand among them, the Admiral remained still, his thoughts racing. He knew that mark. He knew what kind of training it represented. And for the first time since she arrived, silence followed her, not dismissal, not mockery, but something closer to respect. The training compound felt different after that moment. Conversations that normally flowed easily among officers became quieter, more deliberate. Reyes stood slightly apart near the edge of the deck, watching the SEALs run drills below. Her eyes tracked movement with instinctive precision, noting angles, distances, and timing without conscious effort. To anyone else, it looked like casual observation. To someone trained to see it, it was analysis. Rear Admiral Hale remained near the command table longer than usual, pretending to review schedules while his thoughts churned. He hadn't imagined that mark. It was burned into his memory from a briefing decades ago, one that came with warnings and signatures and a reminder that some operators never officially existed. Captain Morrison, the senior SEAL officer on base, stepped up beside him. "Sir," he said quietly, "something wrong." Hale didn't look at him right away. "Tell me," he said instead, "how familiar are you with the Black Ridge program?" Morrison stiffened. "That program was shut down years ago." "So they said," Hale replied. Morrison followed the Admiral's gaze toward Reyes. "You think she's—" "I know what I saw," Hale said. "And if I'm right, then she's not here to observe." Below them, a squad of SEALs ran a timed urban clearance drill. One of the men slipped on loose gravel, throwing off the rhythm of the team. Reyes tilted her head slightly, her lips pressing together almost imperceptibly. "They're exposed on the left," she said quietly. Morrison turned sharply. "What?" Before he could respond, a training grenade detonated near the simulated doorway. Smoke filled the area. The squad hesitated, unsure whether to advance or fall back. Reyes stepped forward instinctively. "Stack tighter," she called out, her voice cutting through the confusion. "2 steps back, rotate entry. Your sightlines are crossing." The SEALs reacted before thinking, their bodies responding to authority carried not by rank but by certainty. The formation adjusted. The drill resumed smoothly, faster and cleaner than before. When it ended, the squad leader looked up, breathing hard. His eyes found Reyes. "Who the hell are you?" he asked. Reyes didn't answer. She realized then what she had done and stepped back, hands clasping behind her again. Morrison stared at her, then slowly turned to Hale. "Sir, that wasn't theory." "No," Hale said, "it wasn't." An hour later, Reyes sat alone in a briefing room, the door closed. The walls were bare except for a screen displaying a paused satellite image. Hale entered quietly, closing the door behind him. "At ease," he said before she could stand. She remained seated, her expression neutral. "I owe you an apology," Hale said. "My earlier remarks were inappropriate." She studied him for a moment. "Not required, sir." "Nevertheless," he said, "that mark on your wrist. You know why I recognized it?" "Yes, sir." "Then you know it places you in a very small circle," he continued. "One that was meant to disappear." Reyes exhaled slowly. "Programs end. Skills don't." Hale nodded. "Why are you here?" She glanced at the screen, then back at him. "Because someone is leaking operational patterns. Not data. Behavior." Hale frowned. "You think we have a compromised unit?" "I think someone has been watching you," she said. "And learning." He folded his arms. "And you?" "I was trained to find patterns before they become casualties," she replied. Silence stretched between them. Hale felt the weight of command settle heavily on his shoulders. "The men won't like this," he said finally. "They don't have to like it," Reyes replied. "They just have to survive it." Hale studied her, seeing now what he had missed before. The restraint, the discipline forged under pressure that didn't allow mistakes. Outside the room, the base continued its routine. Inside, something had shifted irrevocably. Hale straightened. "You'll have full access," he said. "But understand this, once they know who you are, everything changes." Reyes stood. "Everything already has, sir." As she left the room, Hale watched the door close behind her, knowing one thing with certainty now. Whatever threat was coming, Lieutenant Commander Reyes had been sent because she was one of the few who could see it before it arrived. Night settled over the base with deceptive calm. The ocean beyond the perimeter fence was dark and flat, the kind of quiet that experienced operators never trusted. Reyes stood inside the operations center, eyes fixed on a live feed showing a simulated extraction route. Around her, senior officers and SEAL team leaders watched in silence, tension thick in the air. This wasn't a drill anymore. Earlier that evening, Reyes had identified a pattern buried deep in months of after-action reports, small deviations in movement, repeated too precisely to be coincidence. Someone had been feeding timing habits into the open world, not through stolen files, but through predictable behavior. Tonight's exercise had been converted into a live counter-surveillance test. If Reyes was right, the watchers would reveal themselves. Rear Admiral Hale stood at the center of the room, hands clasped behind his back. He hadn't spoken much since authorizing the operation. Command taught him many things, but humility was learned the hard way. He had underestimated her once. He wouldn't do it again. Movement, Reyes said quietly. The room snapped to attention. On the screen, a thermal signature flickered near a ridgeline well outside the training zone. "That's not one of ours," a SEAL officer muttered. Reyes shook her head slightly. "Two observers. High ground. They're not here for the team. They're here for confirmation." Hale turned to her. "Confirmation of what?" "That your routines are consistent," she replied. "And that you don't see beyond your perimeter." Hale didn't hesitate. "Lock it down." Within seconds, security teams shifted silently, moving with discipline that came from years of trust. Reyes adjusted the feed, overlaying angles and ranges mentally faster than the software could process. "They won't engage," she said. "They'll withdraw once they realize they've been spotted." As if on cue, the heat signatures faded. The room exhaled collectively. One of the younger commanders broke the silence. "How did you know?" Reyes finally looked away from the screen. "Because that's what I would have done." No one laughed. No one doubted her. Hale stepped forward, his voice steady but carrying weight. "Lieutenant Commander Reyes identified a vulnerability we didn't know we had," he said. "And she did it without firing a shot." He turned to her, meeting her eyes in front of everyone. "You were right, and I was wrong." The words landed harder than any formal commendation. Around the room, seasoned SEALs nodded slowly. Respect among them wasn't given by rank, it was earned under pressure. Later, as the base returned to controlled quiet, Hale walked with Reyes along the dimly lit corridor leading to the exit. "You could have corrected me this morning," he said. "You chose not to." Reyes paused. "Respect forced is fragile, sir. Respect discovered lasts longer." Hale smiled faintly. "You've changed how I'll run this command." "That was never my objective," she replied. "But it's the result," he said. "And for what it's worth, you belong here." Reyes inclined her head once. Praise acknowledged, not absorbed. At the gate, she stopped, looking back toward the compound where lights glowed against the dark. "The threat will adapt," she said. "They always do. So will we," Hale answered without hesitation. She turned and walked into the night, her figure disappearing beyond the floodlights, leaving behind a command stronger than it had been before. And if you enjoyed this powerful, realistic story of strength, silence, and earned respect, don't forget to subscribe to the channel Her Stories Words, where more unforgettable stories like this come to life.